after the premiere, it was a little dicey. I wasn't sure if you were going to be sticking around, but thankfully, the last moments, you're up and about.
I will survive. I will survive. Yes.
But possibly a little more sinister. I think something maybe
that remains
supernatural.
to be seen. I don't want to, I don't want to divulge and give away anything that might be coming. But I will say this. I will say that Raul ends up, like most people who have had a near-death experience, he becomes a different person.
All right.
Becomes a different person. I would like to think further evolved, but that I guess that's up to the people watching.
And now going into this show, I mean, it's a period piece set in the 30s. It's set against this backdrop with all the Chicano folklore. How familiar were you with everything going into it? Did you do a deep dive on your own beforehand?
Big time. I fell in love with the time period. That's sort of the era of my grandparents, and I just got into it. I got into the history. I got into the music of the time period. Studied a lot of photographs of people from that era, and really just got consumed, especially by the history here in LA.
Yeah.
But I think the things that really touched me in terms of the story were the fact that this is 92 years ago, and so much of what we're going through today, before the pandemic hit, was about who's a citizen and who belongs here and who doesn't. And here we are in this story 92 years ago, people who were legitimately American citizens. I mean, the people in my family are legitimately American citizens in the story, as well as in real life, but in the story. And yet not treated with the same amount of respect or consideration that you would think is certainly just, and let alone fair, but because they're not always the same thing, I don't think. But, and I just felt like what we were saying in the story in terms of representing the people, and what Raul, my character, was representing as a union leader and a community organizer, just really felt so in line with what I wanted to be able to say myself at this point in time about what's going on, that the character just really spoke to me, and I fell in love with him and the story we were telling.
I say it's definitely one of those, like, the more things change, the more they stay the same.
That's the thing, it's really about, it's not even about judging people for feeling this way. It's really trying to get people to empathize enough to understand that every single person in this country, unless you're Native American, has been through some version of this struggle. Any immigrant population that has arrived on these shores has had a struggle to overcome, and yet that first generation, and sometimes even the second generation, is still struggling to establish themselves as American citizens who should be treated as such. And I just felt like it was a really important story that a lot of people can relate to, and what I'm hoping is that people watch it and learn something from it. And with any story that we're going to tell, that hopefully we help people grow and evolve from it.
I've been doing like Wikipedia deep dives after watching the episodes too, just to be like, how much of this actually happened? And
quite a bit. I mean, quite a bit of it is very true. I mean, basically what was going on in terms of the displacement of all the families that were in the way of the freeway being built. It was 20 years later, just about. And the same thing happened with a much more well-known story, the Chavez Ravine, where Dodger Stadium ended up being built. Again, huge amounts of people displaced, completely moved from their homes, jobs, things just completely bulldozed, and in order to do something that was considered progressive at the time, and build a stadium or build a freeway. And look, and there's somewhere in the middle where those things do have to happen. But
there's a way to do it where it's not
do it and
kicking everyone out of their homes.
it's always the poor, it's always the working man that's really compromised in those situations, because they have they usually don't, without organizers, without guys like Raul, they don't have the ability to to rise up against the powers that be, which are usually the folks with a lot of money and influence. So, age old story, but
Yep.
always timely somewhere in the world.
Yeah. And now for you, can you just talk about, I guess, the scope of the show? I mean, coming from a lot of network TV and then going into the Showtime world, where I'm sure that the sets cost, like everything is so meticulous and detailed. And
yeah, I mean, the level of production on this show was mind-blowing. It was a dream come true. I mean, to walk on the sets and see the set pieces that had been created, the props we were using, the costumes we were wearing, they all rose to the level really with which the blueprint of the show was written. I mean, I think John Logan's he's just absolutely one of the most brilliant writers doing it right now in any genre, whether it's stage, television, film. John is really a tremendous talent, and everybody hired to participate in telling this story rose to that level and delivered in a way that was just phenomenal. I mean, I can't tell you how grateful I was to be on set. I mean, I would send notes to people in various departments thanking them for their talent and their commitment to delivering their best in the show. Because as an actor, when you step on the stage and the books that are there in my room, or the watch that I'm wearing, or the shoes that I'm wearing, every last detail is so spot on that it just allows you to settle in and exist in that world in the most real way that I've ever had the opportunity to do. And obviously, Showtime ponied up the money to be able to do that. And then there's a long line of people that have to follow suit and hire the right people, and those people that get hired have to give their heart to the job. And I got to say that really, really happened on this gig, and to be there was an absolute treat. I loved my years of working on network television. I had a great time entertaining people that way, and telling stories that were able to take people out of their daily lives and just sort of zone out for a little bit and have a little mystery who done it, and that was awesome. But this kind of storytelling's on another level, and this is the kind of storytelling that I've always aspired to be a part of, and to get this role at this point in time with these people it's been an absolute dream come true.
Let's say it's a totally different beast going from 20 something episodes a season to something that is a lot more focused and
it's just they're just completely different products. Just absolutely, very different things. I mean, both with the same intention to entertain, but you get a much different opportunity, with something like this. Like you said, we've got the same amount of time it takes us to do 22 or 24 episodes. We're only doing 10. There's a different level of expenditure to do those 10 episodes than there are to even do the 24 we might have done it for network. And there's just a different amount of time to put into the details. And as an artist, when you set out to work in this business, you aspire to do the big thing, the big show, the big production. And I've had a chance to do that now on both levels. Because I mean, look, CSI Miami, Criminal Minds, those are huge
massive
in terms of audience. And it's wonderful to be able to reach that many people. Then you get a chance to maybe tell a story on a smaller platform, but a much bigger story. With it's just there's just a different level of artistic expression you're able to have when you're doing something like this. And and obviously it shows in the story.
Thank you for chatting today. I love the original Penny Dreadful. I'm super into this new one. I love how different it is.
Really glad you are, because there's been some talk of people that were expecting something different, and and I think that if people just give it a chance, especially people that were sort of married to what it was in its first iteration, I think that they will. I mean, look, it's John Logan. It's everything that he puts into his storytelling is present in this, and I think if people give it a chance, I don't think they'll be disappointed.
LA Noir with a supernatural twist. I mean, you got me.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Can't wait to see the rest of the season, and stay safe.
Enjoy. You stay safe, stay healthy, mind and body.
Thank
Good to
you.
talk to you. We'll do it again sometime.
All right. See ya.
Bye bye.